So, Jai Hind and a very good morning to all of you. Welcome to Raj Malhotra IAS and the Daily Current Affairs and MCQ series. I believe that you all are doing good. Let's get started with the first article that we are discussing. That is, a debate has been ongoing at the World Trade Organization, that is the WTO, vis-a-vis the developing country status that China is having, right? So the countries have, they have started raising this question that a country which is, a part of the higher level middle income countries, how can that be granted, or how can that claim to have a developing country status and get the benefits out of it, right? So this is the question we are going to take a look at. But before that, let's get to know what exactly is important from your prelims perspective, right? So as far as the syllabus is concerned, that talks about the multilateral organizations, in which the World Trade Organization is an important part, right? How the status of a developed country and a developing country is granted to the member nations of the WTO, and how exactly the process is governed. What are the benefits which are accrued because of a country being either developed country or a developing country, right? So first things first, when we are discussing this article, though, it talks about the status which the People's Republic of China enjoys at the WTO, right? So as far as the developing countries are concerned, China also claims to be a developing country, and that is why it is able to reap multiple other benefits which are supposedly not to be given, or any, for that matter, any sane person would not say that China should be given those benefits, right? So that is why it has become a contentious issue. And also, all the other things for which the Chinese are notorious for, that also is, another reason to it. Then many countries, they have raised the concerns over the upper middle income nation. That is precisely what the Chinese are, right, deriving all the benefits which are reserved for the developing countries, right, under the WTO norms. So what exactly is the case here is that see, countries like, even the Bangladesh, which recently, was stripped of its developing country status. So even countries which are, below the standing as far as their incomes, their GDP numbers are concerned, they are even not deriving the benefits which the Chinese are. So that certainly is bound to raise questions, and the questions which are harder to be answered by the Chinese, right? Then these concerns have been raised over the least developed country status, which Bangladesh potentially losing this tag after surpassing India in terms of GDP per capita. So now you compare, on the one hand, countries like Bangladesh, which earlier were a part of the LDC, that is the least developed countries, and on the other hand, a China which is, laying debt traps for most of the countries in the world. Not to go far away, even in our backyard, that is, even in our neighboring country, that is Sri Lanka, China has, led that country to walk into a debt trap, and now they have, they've started selling off their national assets, selling off their sovereign land, sovereign territory to the Chinese. That is the kind of model which the Chinese are playing as a part of their diplomacy, right? Because certainly the diplomacy for Chinese is not diplomacy, but it is a cover, it is a clandestine way, or it is just the masquerade through which they try to just bargain and get hold over the foreign sovereign territories, right? So case in point, Sri Lanka. So how can they continue to enjoy all the perks, all the benefits of being a developing country at the World Trade Organization, right? So that certainly is a big question. And mind you, all the like-minded democratic countries in the world must unite and start questioning the Chinese intentions, the Chinese actions, and whatever their notorious actions are, their nefarious actions are underplaying or executing in the world, right? Chaliye. So that is some insight I believe you were able to derive through this discussion. Let's now take this question. So consider the following statements regarding the provisions in the World Trade Organization. The first statement reads, the developed and developing countries have not been defined by the WTO. Second, the individual nations themselves are free to announce whether they are developing or developed. And third, the developing countries are given special rights through special and differential treatment provisions. Yes. So please mark the answers in the comment section. Yes, good morning, Feel Freak. I don't know what's your name. Good morning. Have a good day, you too. Chaliye. So we have B and C as the answers. Great. Look, as far as the processes or the norms at the World Trade Organization are concerned, then as such there is no statute or there is no law, or you can say any policy which gives a subtle or precise, which gives a precise rather definition for the developing and the developed countries. It has been, left to the countries themselves to define whether they are developing or developed, right? So that is why the second and the first statement will be correct, that WTO as such does not define, right? When we talk about the developing countries, they are given special rights through the special and differential treatment. Then that is precisely the case why, the countries are questioning China, because that continues to get this special and differential treatment and the benefits which accrue to you, right? So that is why the third statement is also going to be correct, and hence your answer will be 1, 2 and 3, option C. Look, Pranjal, as far as the WTO is concerned, it is incumbent upon the individual country to declare itself whether it is developed or it is developing, right? Per se, there is no mechanism which has been defined by WTO to give a precise specific definition as to which country will fall in a developing country status or a developed country status, and that is where the discretion comes on the part of individual member nations, right? Chaliye, great. So I believe this question is clear. Moving to the next article now. Yes, so 2 lakh more got jobs in 9 sectors. That is the government survey, the QES, right? So what is important? What are the, what is the state of different sectors in the economy, the employment scenario in the country, and certainly the state of the Indian economy at large, right? Because you again have the Omicron cases rising, and because of that, an impact which is there on the Indian economy as also on the world economy. So this was the round 2 of the QES, that is the quarterly employment survey, that was released by the Union Labour and Employment Ministry, right? What are the findings and which are the sectors which we are talking about? So they are manufacturing, construction, trade, transport, education, health, accommodation and restaurants, IT and BPOs, that is the business process outsourcing, and financial services. So almost covering a host of spectrum, or almost covering the entire spectrum as the, all the employment opportunities, the major ones are concerned in the country, right? So what the report says, that there has been, even during the pandemic, the employment increased. That is what the QES says, right? That might be surprising to some, but the point is that the services sector at least, that was able to somehow withstand the onslaught of the pandemic and the repercussions which were there on due to the pandemic, right? And that is why the QES is also reflecting on that count, right? But this has been, contested. This has not gone uncontested by some of the academics, right? But nonetheless, taking it on face value, that is what the QES has to offer, right? Let's take a look at this question now. We are going to discuss some of the things through the question itself. So the question reads, which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to the quarterly employment survey? First, regular workers constitute more than 80% of the estimated workforce in the 9 selected sectors, with only 2% being casual workers. Second, as compared to the round 1 of the survey, the overall percentage of female workers has decreased in the round 2. Yes, what do you think should be the right answer here? Only 1, only 2, both 1 and 2, neither 1 nor 2. So Rohit is saying answer would be C. Yes, the rest of you? Okay, Asha says C, Surbhi says A, Ahana says A. Great. ठीक है, right. So look, as far as the round 2 of the QES is concerned, the round 1 and the round 2. So as far as this latest round 2 of the QES is concerned, the quarterly employment survey, then certainly, to the astonishment of most of the people, the percentage or the overall percentage of female workers, that did not decrease, but rather that increased. So the second statement will be incorrect. But as far as the first statement is concerned, that regular workers, they constitute more than 80%, somewhere near 87%, I think, is what the QS data suggests to be. 87% is the regular workforce of the estimated workforce in the 9 selected sectors. We just talked about that, right, and only 2% being casual workers. So this is correct. So the answer for question 2 will be A, that is only the first statement is true. Yeah, exactly, right. Chaliye. So that is increased, right. So moving to the next article now, amendments that are unnecessary. So this was, an editorial that was carried by the Hindu yesterday, and I believe that you must have read it. So what this piece of editorial talks about is that the government is trying to, or it has sought inputs regarding what should be the amendments that should be made in the Registration of Births and Deaths Act 1969, right. So as with the advent of technology, with the coming of the Aadhaar, and with the coming of all the biometric database, now what the government is seeking, that they're trying to integrate the provisions, or they're trying to integrate how the deaths and births are registered under this particular statute, and they are going to make a national database out of it, right. That as soon as you are going to register either a death or a birth with the authorities, with the local concerned authorities, that detail is going to be forwarded to multiple authorities across the country, including the Election Commission of India, including UIDAI, right, who are going to integrate it with their own database, right. So that is what the amendments, the inputs or suggestions with respect to these amendments the government has called for right now. So this is the central government which has invited the comments on the proposed amendments on the RBD Act, right. And one of the major proposal which is the bone of contention here is that it wants to prepare a national database of registered births and deaths, right. So in this editorial, what the author has argued, that certain amendments are certainly, they are good, with time you need to update the laws, but some amendments are unnecessary, they are uncalled for. What are those amendments? The author argues here that you don't need to unnecessarily every time update all the other authorities across the spectrum to, every time there's a registration of a new birth or a death. What the author says here is that this exercise can be done maybe twice in a year, or maybe once in a year. That is on an annual basis, or maybe twice in a year, right. You don't need to do it every time that the state authorities or the district authorities, the concerned local authorities, they are going to provide that data to the all other organizations, including the Election Commission, right. So this is intended to be updated for every birth and death, and the database is created in accordance with many other laws, including the National Population Register, voter list, that is where the Election Commission of India comes into the picture, right, and the Aadhaar database, right. So that is precisely what is being discussed here in this article, in this editorial, right. So based on this, you must be acquainted with the provisions of this act. So let's take that through this question. Hanji. So the question reads that, which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to the Registration of Births and Deaths Act 1969? Statement 1. The Chief Secretary appointed in every state is the executive authority for implementation of the act. Second, under the RBD Act, it is the responsibility of the states to register births and deaths. And third, the Registrar General of India appointed under this act is responsible for coordinating and unifying the implementation of the RBD Act. Yes. So what do you think should be the answer here? Yes, certainly that is going to be, it is going to be a duplicity of effort, or rather you would say that, conducting that exercise on maybe a monthly basis, or maybe a fortnight basis, or maybe a daily or weekly basis, that is certainly going to overburden the already exhausted state machinery and central machinery, the administrative machineries. Okay, so we have Rohit and Shubhankar saying D should be the answer. Pranjal says B, and Asha says B. Okay, great. So we have B and C, some of the answers. Great. So look, when you talk about the responsibility to register births and deaths in the state, that certainly falls with the respective state governments, right, and they certainly delegate it to the concerned district officials, that this exercise is ultimately carried out by the district officials, right. So that is how the act operates. So second will be correct. Then you have the office of the RGI, that is the Registrar General of India, who has the responsibility on his shoulders to coordinate and unify the implementation of the provisions of the act across the country. So at a pan-India level, it is the responsibility of the Office of the Registrar General of India. So this is also correct. But it is not the Chief Secretary. If you, those of you who have marked, जिन लोगों ने answer B mark किया है, that is you are saying that 2 and 3 are correct, then who is the authority that should be placed here instead of the Chief Secretary? If it is not the Chief Secretary, I am asking you to comment in the comment section. I am asking you to mark that authority in the comment section, that then if not the Chief Secretary, then whom? The Chief Registrar. Yes, exactly. That is what I was looking for. It is not the Chief Secretary, although the Chief Secretary in a state is the topmost bureaucrat as far as the state is concerned, but it is the Chief Registrar who is appointed for the purpose of, you know, the registration of births and deaths in that state. So the option B will be correct here, 2 and 3. Yes, exactly. Now we have the answers in the comment section. The Chief Registrar. Right. So for question number 3, answer is certainly B. Right. So you have the Chief Registrar in every state who is the executive authority for the implementation of the act. Right. And certainly below him you have a hierarchy of officials at the district and the lower levels who are actually on the ground doing the work. Right. Which is certainly is falling under the overall control of the Chief Registrar in the state, and at the national level under the Registrar General of India, the office of the RGI. Right. Chaliye. So moving to the next article now. This first we are going to discuss through a question itself, that is, Deltacron is making global headlines now. This is something new that has, come up with the further mutations in the virus. So let's take this question straight away, and through that we are going to discuss it. So the question reads, which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to NSARS-CoV-2, that is novel severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2? First, infected persons with Delta variant had a significantly higher risk of hospitalization than those with the Alpha variant of the virus. And second, Deltacron has Omicron-like genetic signatures within the Delta genome. Yes. What should be the answer here? Okay, Rahul and Shubhankar and Vivek marking it as C. Right. Absolutely, absolutely. I think you've got it, you must have read it. So look, when we talk about the research that was conducted, this is a case from Cyprus, right, where the research has said that 20-25 odd people were infected or were found infected by this new variant, which is a combination of the Delta plus the Omicron, right? So that makes it to Deltacron. That is how the name has been derived, right? So this second statement is correct, that it is having genetic signatures within the Delta genome, but still further studies are required as to what is going to be the pathological significance of this virus, how it is going to affect humans, or whether it is going to be fatal enough or not, right? And what is the transmissibility of this particular variant. So that still is under study, that has not been revealed, only this much has been revealed by the research, right? Then when we talk about the Delta variant and the Alpha variant, then certainly the hospitalization risk was certainly more for the Delta variant than the Alpha variant of the virus. So that certainly is correct, right? So look, as we are progressing towards, we are plateauing, or we are moving towards, we are right now we are climbing, but ultimately we'll plateau and then we'll start declining with respect to the undeclared third wave. But what is important for you people from the exam perspective is that you also revise the previous variants, right? The new variants certainly are there, the virus is mutating, and that is certainly a natural thing which every virus does. But from the exam perspective, please be sure that you revise the previous variants, their dangers and all those things associated with them, right? So for question 4, answer obviously is C. Both these statements are true, right? So this is basically a Cyprus research that has found this new variant that combines the characteristics of Delta and Omicron, and the University of Cyprus based researchers has claimed that this is a new strain of the coronavirus, right? Although it is still not clear that whether it is going to be more contagious, whether it is going to prevail or not, right? So that is how it is. That is how it is going to be, right? Yeah, it is quite early to say. Yes, exactly, Pranjal. Agreed with you on that. The researchers have still not given a very clear-cut picture regarding this Delta Cron variant, right? Chaliye. So moving to the last question for the day. Hanji. Which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to Sea Dragon 22 exercise? First, recently India along with 5 other Indo-Pacific nations participated in a multilateral anti-submarine warfare exercise in the Pacific Ocean. Second, US Navy P-8A Poseidon aircraft from the Golden Swordsman and the Tridents also joined in the exercise. Third, South Korea, Japan and Maldives participated in the exercise off the coast of Guam. Yes, what do you think should be the answer here? Yes, I'll be waiting for a couple of minutes. Please mark your answers quickly in the comment section. And it's a humble request that all of you mark your answers, right? Otherwise, there's no point in participating in this session. Okay. B and D is what I can gauge from the comment section. Right. So look, when you talk about the Sea Dragon exercise 22, that is certainly you have United States of America, you have Australia, you had South Korea, you had Japan, 1, 2, 3, 4, you had India, and which other country? 6 countries were there. Which other country is there? Which country is left? Yes, exactly, Canada. Right, so these were the part of it. It was not Maldives. So third is outrightly incorrect. First is correct and second is also correct, that the countries they participated, yes, exactly, Quad plus 2, precisely Canada and South Korea. Right, these are the two nations which you can say that the Quad plus 2. That is how it is. Yes, exactly. Great. ठीक है, तो आंसर क्या हो जाएगा? 1 and 2 only, right? So let's take a look at the map, and I also have an announcement to make, so please make sure that you are connected until the end, right? So the 6 Indo-Pacific nations, they took part in the Dragon exercise, right? And all these countries are there in front of you. So what is basically the aim? The aim is that, to conduct anti-submarine warfare training and excellence, which culminates over 270 hours of in-flight training ranging from tracking simulated targets to the final challenge of tracking a live US Navy submarine. Now the question is that certainly this is important from prelims perspective, but apart from that, this is also important from mains perspective. Why I am saying this is important from mains perspective? Because you have an ever increasing threat from China, especially in the Indo-Pacific region. And remember, the Chinese have also, the Hambantota port, the Colombo port, the Hambantota port, and all these, infrastructure, the pearl string, that all is a threat to a free Indo-Pacific, and that certainly impinges directly on the Indian interests. This is the busiest route, one of the busiest routes across the world for a free trade to happen. And if China is let to have its way, if we just, walk China the way it wants, then certainly it is going to be not good for the entire region, not just for India, also for the world at large, right? So that is why these exercises are relevant, they are important, they are significant. So this is the Guam area in the Indo-Pacific, in the Pacific Ocean, right, which is a US controlled area, right, and that is the map with respect to it, right. So that brings us to the end, but apart from that, it is Swami Vivekanand Jayanti today also, right. It's his birth anniversary, that is the 12th of January, right. So greetings to all of you, respects and tributes to this great leader who always continues to inspire the generation of today, the youth of today, and of tomorrow as well. So arise, awake, and stop not until the goal is reached, right. So on that note, I have come to an end of this session, but yes, the cases are rising, and maybe it could be the case, that is the last announcement which I want you to listen before I leave, that before due to some of the the rise in the cases, as a precautionary measure, the next sessions for a couple of days, 2 to 3 days maybe, they might come as recorded sessions, right. Or maybe I'll be taking them from my home itself, right. So please cooperate, and the rest will be communicated to you on the Telegram channel itself, right. So on that note, thank you so much. It's a wrap. Stay safe, study well, Jai Hind, and take care. Bye bye.